who epitomizes the movement, Senator Rubio.
Thank you guys so much. I'm so honored to be here with you guys and be back in CPAC. I don't know if you remember, maybe some of you were here. 3 years ago I came here when my chances of winning the U.S. Senate were about as much as my chances of winning a papal conclave. But I did win, and we won thanks to all of you and the help you've given me and your support. Let me tell you why I ran 3 years ago. I ran because I believe this country is extraordinarily special. And like many of you, I believe it's in trouble. It was headed in the wrong direction. And as we gather here today for this CPAC, 3 years later, I believe that more today than I did just 3 years ago. And we have to do something about it. And that's what we're here to talk about today. Now, what I sense from a lot of people that I've been talking to is this fear that somehow America has changed, that our people have changed. That we've reached this point in time and we have too many people in America that want too much from government, that maybe the changes that have happened are irreversible and that will never be the same again. I want you to understand that that's not true. Our people have not changed. The vast majority of the American people are hard-working taxpayers who will take responsibility for their families, go to work every day, they pay their mortgage on time, they volunteer in the community. This is what the vast majority of the American people still are. What's changed is the world around us. It's changed dramatically. Just think how much the world has changed in the last 10 years. The global economy is real. We don't live in a national economy anymore. Everything you buy, everything you sell, everything you touch, it's all impacted by things that are happening halfway around the world. The information age is real. It's made our lives easier. It's allowed you right now to take pictures with your phones and tweet every word I say for or against me. It's changed the world and it's made our life easier. It's also changed our economy. You go into a grocery store today and you will find machines doing the job that people once used to do. You find today in many businesses that one person, because of automation, can do the work that 5 people used to do. It's the world around us that's changed. And this has had an impact on our people, on our hard-working people. Many have seen their jobs wiped out. Jobs they've been doing for 20 years disappeared overnight. Many of them do things the right way. For example, they pay their mortgages on time. And now, when the housing bubble came, they were stuck with a bill for bailing out the banks that caused it, for bailing out the people who took out mortgages they couldn't afford to pay. Everywhere they look, they see trouble around them. They look to Washington, D.C. as if they don't have enough troubles to begin with. Every week, Washington's creating some sort of man-made crisis for them to worry about. And they look at the political process, whether it's fair or not. And what many of them see is they think that one side is fighting for the people that have made it, and all the other side does is fight for government policies to protect the people who are struggling. And they don't want to take anything away from anybody, the vast majority of Americans in the hard-working middle class. They don't want to take away from people that have made it. They don't want to hurt the people that are trying. But they wonder, who's fighting for them? Who's fighting for the hard-working, everyday people of this country, who do things right and do not complain, that have built this nation and have made it exceptional? And as conservative believers in limited government and free enterprise, that is both our challenge and our opportunity to be their voice. And by the way, I can't think of a better call. Because our hard-working middle class is one of the things that makes America different and special from the rest of the world. Every country in the world has rich people. Unfortunately, every country in the world has poor people. But few have the kind of vibrant, widespread middle class that America does. A widespread middle class that everyone, we have said, should have an equal opportunity to be a part of, the middle class or even better. It sets us apart from the world. And in that light, you hear all this debate about infighting among conservatives, infighting among people that believe in limited government. That's really a foolish notion. People who disagree on all sorts of things in the real world work together all the time on things they do agree on. And there has to be a home and a movement in America for people who believe in limited government, constitutional principles, and a free enterprise system, and that should be us. Now, in order to work together with people that you disagree with, there has to be mutual respect. That means I respect people that disagree with me on certain things, but they have to respect me too. Just because I believe that states should have the right to define marriage in a traditional way does not make me a bigot. Just because we believe that all human life, is worthy of protection at every stage of its development does not make me a bigot. The people who are actually close-minded in American politics are the people that love to preach about the certainty of science in regards to our climate, but ignore the absolute fact that science has proven that life begins at conception. So, our challenge is to create an agenda applying our principles. Our principles, they still work. Applying our time-tested principles to the challenges of today. And what does an agenda like that look like? Well, I think government has three things it can do to help. A limited government has three things that it can do to help. The first is it can make America the best place in the world to create middle-class jobs. That's why we need, for example, to engage in the global economy through fair trade. But we also need to engage in the world. If we're living in a global economy, America must be wise in how it uses its global influence. We can't solve every war. We can't be involved in every armed conflict, but we also can't be retreating from the world. And so that balance is critically important for us to strike because we live in a global economy. Beyond that, we need to have pro-growth energy policies, including oil and natural gas. Our regulations have to be the product of a cost-benefit analysis. You know, you go to some of these other countries, the government is trying to help the business community. In America, business feels like government is their impediment, their competitor, their enemy. That has to stop. Our monetary policy cannot be used to inflate things beyond and distort our economy. The list goes on and on. We know about tax policy. We need to have a pro-growth tax structure, not one that's designed to take from some and give to others. And last but not least, we believe in solving our debt problem, not just out of some ideological affinity, but because it's hurting job creation. Jobs are not being created in America. There are jobs that are not being created in this country because we have a $16.5 trillion debt and it's only scheduled to get bigger. That problem has to be solved, and you can only solve it, the only real approach that solves it is the combination of fiscal discipline and rapid economic growth. There is no tax increase in the world that will solve our long-term debt problem. The second thing that our government can help us do is help ourselves by acquiring the skills of the 21st century. And that's why I think every parent in America should have the opportunity to send their children to the school of their choice. By the way, we should encourage career education. Not everyone has to go to a 4-year liberal arts college. We still need plumbers, we still need carpenters. Why aren't we graduating more kids, not just with a high school diploma, but with an industry certification and a career, a real middle class career? And last but not least, because I'm running out of time, last but not least, do not underestimate, I know this movement does not, the impact that the breakdown of the American family is having on our people and their long-term future. Now, government's role in solving that is limited. We have to talk about it for sure. Government's role in solving this is limited. But ultimately, we should recognize we do have obligations to each other. In addition to our individual rights, our individual responsibilities to each other, but not through government, through community, through our churches and through our neighborhoods, as parents and neighbors and friends. Those are the best ways in which we can serve our fellow Americans. Through voluntary organizations where every single day, Americans from all walks of life are literally changing the world one day, one life, one neighbor at a time. And last but not least, the cost of living is real. And that's why we need a healthcare reform. But not a healthcare reform that injects the federal government in a takeover of the world's highest quality healthcare industry. but a healthcare reform that empowers Americans so they can buy health insurance from any company in America that's willing to sell it to them. My last point on cost of living, you'll hear a lot about this. You should be very concerned about student loan debt. It is the next big bubble in America. I know something about it. I graduated with over $100,000 in student loans. And I paid it off last year with the proceeds of my book, which is available on Amazon for $12.99. Just a shameless plug. Anyway, we have, and let me tell you that really hurts. Student loans, you know that really hurts? It hurts the middle class. Because many of them, their parents make a little bit too much to qualify for grants. And so they have to rely on these student loans, and we have to start solving that problem. There are all kinds of innovative ideas, whether it's self-directed learning, whether it's empowering people with more information so they know how much they can expect to make, that they graduate with a certain degree, and how much they can expect to owe. Whatever it may be, we have to tackle this issue. It is a major problem for our future, and a major problem for the American middle class. My time is up, so let me close. A couple things. If you look at our government, you have a right to be pessimistic. But here's the good news. Our government has never been America. America has never been our government. America has never been our politicians. America has always been our people. With all the bad news out there, you can still find the tremendous promise of tomorrow in the everyday stories of our people. Let me tell you one story. There's this couple that I know. They're on my son's tackle football team, 7 years old. Their son is 8 years old. This is a couple, they're married. She works as a receptionist at a dental office, a medical office. He loads boxes from trucks at a warehouse. I don't have to tell you, they're struggling. They live in a little small apartment, they share one car. They're not freeloaders. They're not liberals. They're just everyday people that want what everybody else wants. They want a better life. They want a better life for themselves and an even better life for their children. And they're desperate. And sometimes when you're like that, let me tell you, no matter how much your principles may be, you're susceptible to this argument that maybe government is the only thing that can help. And that's where we have to come in and explain that that's not true. The first thing they really need is an economy. A vast and vibrant economy that's creating the kind of middle-class jobs that will allow them to get for themselves that better future. The next thing they need is the skills for those jobs. There are 3 million jobs available in America that are not filled because too many of our people don't have the skills for those jobs. That's what they need skills for those new jobs. So that instead of being a receptionist, she can be an ultrasound tech. So that instead of loading boxes from a truck, he can be fixing those trucks. And the third thing they need is a place where their cost of living is affordable, where their increased paycheck isn't being eaten away. And let me tell you what the stakes are, because the stakes are not just America. The stakes are bigger than that. Never in the history of the world has water been so popular. I'll close by telling you what I think of this day. It's a lot bigger than just the American political debate. As you know, yesterday there was a transition in the government in China. They have a new president, they have new leaders. This new leader loves to go around giving speeches where he refers to something called the China Dream. You may say, what's the China Dream? What does that mean? Let me tell you what the China Dream is. The China Dream is a book that was written by, I think it's a colonel, a Chinese army colonel. Let me tell you what the gist of the book is. I'll save you the time of reading. That China's goal should be to surpass the United States as the world's preeminent military and economic power. That's what the China Dream means. In fact, in the foreword of it, another general writes, the 21st century should be a race to see who can become the champion country to lead world progress. So while we are here bickering in this country and arguing about whether we should spend more than we take in, or what government's role should be, there is a nation trying to supplant us as the leading power in the world. And you may say, so why does that matter? Some people would say, let someone else take the lead for a while. We're tired of solving the world's problems, and believe me, I understand. I do. It's frustrating. But let me explain something. First, let me explain to you what the Chinese government is. The Chinese government provides their people no access to the internet. The Chinese government will hold citizens prisoner without any right to recourse. The Chinese government coerces and tortures people until they get confessions from them. The Chinese government restricts the ability of people to assemble. If you escape China, they actually put pressure on governments to force them to return you. The Chinese government has coercive birth limitation policies, which means that in some cases, they are forcing abortions and sterilizations. The Chinese government uses forced labor. And this is what they do to their own people. We want that to be the leading country in the world? We want that to be the leading voice on this planet? That's the stakes. That's what's at stake in America's greatness. This is not just about national pride. The truth of the matter is, don't take this for granted. What we have here is different and special and historic. In the vast history of the world and of mankind, almost everyone that's ever been born is poor and disadvantaged with no ability to get ahead. What's made us different is that here people have the real chance to get a better life, no matter where they started out. And do not underestimate what that has meant for the world. Now, as soon as I'm done speaking, I'll tell you what the criticism on the left is going to be. Number one, he drank too much water. Number two, that he didn't offer any new ideas. And here's the fallacy of it. We don't need a new idea. There is an idea. The idea is called America. And it still works. Look around the world today. Who are they copying? They're not copying the former Soviet Union. They're not copying Russia. They're not even copying China. They are copying us with every step towards free enterprise. Millions of people all over the world are emerging from poverty. Millions of people all over the world are emerging from generational poverty because they were inspired by the American idea. They may claim to hate us, but they sure would like to be us. The question is, in the world that we will leave our children, what will be the dominant country in the world? What will be the light-shining example for the world? A country like the one I just described to you in China or in other places? Or a country like ours? That is what's at stake. And I believe, no, I know that we'll make the right choice. Because I believe in my heart what I've always believed. That if we give our people the opportunity of free enterprise and upward mobility, they will do what they've always done. They will build and sustain a vibrant middle class and beyond. That if we give our children the skills they need for the 21st century, they will do what Americans have always done. They will change the world for the better. That if we do what we are supposed to do, we will always be who we are destined to be, the single greatest nation in the history of the world. Thank you very much.